Hello and welcome everybody. So this session is all about sustainability and SaaS. Specifically, we're going to learn how data-powered SaaS products can really propel sustainability goals forward. Specifically, it's all about how profit and impact can go hand in hand or even enhance each other when the thing that makes a product valuable to customers is also what makes it sustainable. Just briefly for the audience, we won't really have time for Q&A at the end, but you can reach out to myself or any of the panelists afterwards with questions and we'll be happy to tell you more. So just before we get started, brief background to myself. Before investing, before startups, I started my career in clean energy policy advocacy in the US and was trying to figure out how we could make our power grid and transportation emit less carbons. I've cared deeply about sustainability since then. Since then, moved to Europe, had a career in startups in product marketing pricing, most recently VP of Marketing and Growth at a Stockholm-based startup, where I joined them at seed stage, and then 6 months ago left them to join Arctic15, where among other things, I'm driving our internal focus to identify those really exciting companies that will take sustainability to the next level. But I'm the least interesting person here. We're not here to listen to me, we're here to listen to our panelists. So Frida, how about we start with you? Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and WorldFavour?
Yes, great to be here. My name is Frida Emilsson and I'm one of the founders of WorldFavour. WorldFavour is a global digital platform. Basically, what we do is to make it much easier for businesses to share sustainability data, sustainability information and compliance information with each other. So both sharing and accessing from one place. And our customers use our software as a service for basically getting access to information on other businesses, such as suppliers or their investees, or it can also be internal units of different kinds, and automate the analysis of this information in order to make it graspable insights for them to really progress in sustainability.
Wonderful, thank you. And Monika, how about yourself and Enfuse?
Yes, so my name is Monika Liikamaa and thanks for having me. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Enfuse. What we do is we do payments. So we started off by becoming the first payment processor in the world to put card payment processing in a public cloud. And then we have gone further with developing different kind of services to enable banks, financial institutions, merchants to issue different types of payment methods. But when building the company for global scale, we also wanted to do things that are sustainable. So at the end of last year, we were looking at what do we actually do as our core business. We process payment data and we store and process personal data. And that actually means that we have the result of what we as individuals or SMEs or businesses actually consume and buy and thus emit from a CO2 perspective. And since sustainability is one of our core values, we were looking into how could we actually help our customers, help us as consumers to understand better the impact of what we actually buy. And that's how we then launched My Carbon Action. So we're talking a lot about taking payments to the purpose, so making it more sustainable. And we are here to revolutionize payments and enabling banks and other players to teach us how to consume in a more sustainable manner.
So we have sustainability platform, and then last but not least, Darren, tell us about yourself and Material Exchange.
Thank you, Ingrid. So my name is Darren Glenister. I'm CEO of Material Exchange. Material Exchange is a B2B SaaS platform that digitizes the relationships between large brands in footwear and apparel and their material suppliers. So think of us as the data hub in between the two. We connect the brands with their suppliers, digitize all the data that's required, and we're in a unique position by being able to influence a lot of brands in terms of sustainable materials and sustainable choices, but not just in terms of choices, but also in their practices for developing products.
Very good. Thank you guys for those introductions. So you all mentioned data is just the part of your business that exists. So I'm going to dive straight in pretty deep right away. So one of the challenges, even as myself, I look at Ox's sustainability strategy, is there's a myriad of different frameworks, certifications out there. And the reality is that the impact that we therefore measure from sustainable initiatives can be really variable. How have you approached this with respect to the data in your product? Do you take a stand in an opinion, or do you stay out of it? Darren, how about I start with you?
It's a very good question. At the core of Material Exchange is data. We've actually defined digital materials, as in all the attributes required for a material to be represented in a digital form and be sourced. A key aspect there is sustainability data. There are around 500 different sustainable initiatives globally for fashion alone, and we work with many of those initiatives. Each brand has its own stance on what sustainable practices it wishes to follow. Our goal is not to fully influence, it's to give the data, make the data available for the brands and the suppliers to actually make better choices around sustainability and material choices. So to answer your question, the brands obviously are very large. We work with some of the biggest in the world, and they need to ultimately decide what their own sustainable initiatives are.
And is that similar to what you see, Frida, and the range of different types of enterprises you work with?
As we see it, there are, as you say, there are plenty of different frameworks. And I would say the different frameworks are on different levels. So some of them are very high level, very big goals like sustainable development goals, while other frameworks are more focused on how to measure things, how to report things, and all of these. So what we are trying to do is basically not to invent something new because there are so many different frameworks out there already, but rather to digitalize the language that we use to exchange this information. So for example, it was something that we measured like CO2, for example, which is an easy topic. And that is something that comes into basically all the different frameworks available. So it's not like they are for different things. There are more different lenses of looking at the information. And that what we with WorldFavour are trying to do is to just basically to digitalize that and to simplify that way of looking at the information from different lenses, from different frameworks. But then, of course, there are deeper level questions that there are no standardization for yet. Every industry has specific topics that they want to really look carefully into. And if there's no framework for that, then the only thing to do is for a brand or a large organization to sort of make up their own way of measuring this. So here we really see our role is to try to streamline this, streamline what's not yet streamlined, so to say, what's not yet standardized, and to support industries in doing that in various ways, but focus on the digitalization rather than inventing new frameworks for us with WorldFavour.
And then Monika, I remember when we spoke that you guys have taken a perhaps slightly different, but perhaps similar approach. We'll listen to going into academic research and really look at the science behind the surface.
Yes, for us it was really important that since we have a lot of data on what people buy, where they consume, etc., that the actual calculation on the products and services are scientifically based, and that we have all the amount of data relevant. I think one of the challenges is that we decided to collaborate with DMAT, which is a company built up of professors who have been working in the carbon footprint from a personal lifestyle for the past 16 years. There's a lot of talk about, me as an individual, in the end of the day, I can't influence the CO2 emissions, which means that I really can't influence, the climate change. And that's not true. There's evidence and science research that 70% of the CO2 emissions can be attributed to individuals. So what we consume, what we buy, the everyday choices we make. So taking that data, and that data differs per country. So there's an aspect of who am I as a person? So meaning, what do I consume? How do I eat? How do I travel? How do I live? And then also in what country do I live in? And all of that data is as a basis, the statistics data and the scientific data is part of our calculation. So of course, the more data we get and the better data we get of the whole value chain, that will then make the calculations more precise. But in the end of the day, it's important to do something. And I fully agree that with Frida and Darren, that there's so many things going on, meaning different types of calculation and on different levels. But we are definitely targeting so that we as consumer understand. Like, for example, average Finn emits 10.4 tons of CO2 emissions per year from how we live and the lifestyles we have. And in order for us to reach or kind of not go above the Paris Agreement and 1.5 degree lifestyle, or decrease or increase in the temperature, we need to reduce our CO2 emissions by over 70% in the next 10 years. And having that huge burden can feel really big. So for us, it has been important to get that transactional data and the CO2 calculation in the everyday transaction so that I can do the changes I need to do gradually, but quite fast paced. And it's different between different countries. So that's the perspective we have taken, and that's then part of our core business as a payments processor.
It's really interesting that there's definitely that similarity, that the data is important, showing it, but at the same time, not taking a stance if there's could be a very difference in opinion, but at the same time, giving some transparency. I guess that's really to something that I often, if I have data, that's enough for me. I'll look into it, I'll dig into it, figure out what I can do. But there's certainly an aspect that your customers are probably overwhelmed with the amount of information that they're getting. Have you found that you need to hire internally in order to help them interpret the product that you're giving them? Or how do you train them? Could you talk to me about that part essentially? Is data access enough, or do you need to help people understand how to use it? Shall we go the other way? Monika, how about you start this time?
Yeah, definitely that's a core part. So if we think about what we do normally, we do infrastructure and payments. So we don't have visible apps. Our customers are the ones who have apps, Pleo and Rocker and these kind of players. But in this realm of sustainability, it's really important because it's such a sensitive but urgent topic to actually teach how to use the data. So what we also did was in the early days was to make a demo environment so that our customers, banks, merchants, whatever, can actually understand themselves. Because in the end of the day, it's people buying from people. It's people wanting to make an impact, even though you are, working at whatever company. So yes, we have people working internally on packaging and explaining and making our customers understand how they can communicate it to their customers.
And Darren, have you guys looked at this at Material Exchange?
We have, as I said earlier, there are a lot of initiatives out there and brands tend to follow their own. We have a lot of material data, so materials like leather, fabrics, polyurethane. There's a big drive to sustainable practices in terms of which materials are chosen. And we realized that in order for us to fully realize that potential, we've even had to add a sustainability team in our company. And actually, in 2 weeks' time, we have a chief sustainability officer starting who's going to lead up the strategy to ensure that we have the right pieces from the sustainable initiatives, and then we can communicate those directly into the brands, because they need to understand how it translates to our product. So our product is having the material data available, its impact to the environment, or if it has a negative impact to the environment, and then actually also digitalization processes, which are important for sustainability, because fashion is notoriously wasteful. A lot of samples are produced. A lot of brands are now moving to digitalization, so they're moving to 3D product creation. And even that in itself is a whole different practice And we've now added a 3D expert as well to our company to ensure that sustainable 3D design can take place. So yes, we're having to help the brands, even though they're the biggest fashion brands in the world, to make the right choices.
And Frida?
Yeah, I think it's a good question that I was thinking a little bit about. I think we are working to the majority of our customers still have a very specific person or team very focused on this topic, which means that we don't really need to teach them or educate them in terms of what sustainability, how should they look at their progress, or how should they look at the data that they get in terms of like, what does this mean in terms of sustainability? But obviously data is not meaningful without the right ways of visualizing it, the right ways of being able to compare, detect things. So there's, first of all, a lot that we do when it comes to the interface. So how do I actually make the information easily understandable? And there I would say we have learned a lot from our customers when it comes to how should we visualize this in the best way? How should we alert our customers in the best possible way, and so on. For different types of users, we have buyers, we have sustainability officers being in our platform and analyzing this. But then of course we have a customer success team that is working with helping our clients to onboard and to understand how do we utilize this in the best way? How do we take this forward? How do we? So my view is that at least most of our customers have high internal knowledge and ambitions of where they're going, and that then we are an enabler for them to measure themselves into that direction. But we wouldn't be able to just give them a platform and say, here you go, do what you want. There's a need for training for them to put that into, like Darren said, into the WorldFavour context, and how does this look here, and what do I do with this information?
That was an interesting point you made on sort of how you've had learnings on the UI and UX side from your own customers, Frida. Is that something that you've found, Monika and Darren?
Go ahead, Monika.
Yeah, definitely. I think from us also, we decided to do our service threefold for the ones who want to install it on-prem, the ones who want to consume it through APIs, and the ones who actually want to buy it as a white label solution. So there is definitely, in the end of the day, again, there's a huge demand to do something, but to actually get it done, it's always the challenge. So we try to help in any and every way possible.
And from our perspective, we're seeing big changes in our user experience of our product. We're seeing increased demand from customers. The more data we have, the more demand there is to consume that data, in particular sustainable data. So we're having to invent new ways for brands to interact with the material data, as well as the suppliers and the vendors to manage their data and make that accessible.
Very cool. All right, time for one last question, and we'll keep it short, which is, we said at the beginning that it's profit and impact go hand in hand. So how do you measure the impact, and how do you know it's helping to your profit? And Darren, start with you, but we'll go quick.
Yeah, so from our perspective, impact is based on volume. The more material we have about 40,000 materials in the system at the moment, growing rapidly. The more data we have, the more we can influence a $1 trillion industry, which is sourcing materials. And we see that, the orders from our customers are huge. So we get the right impact, the right sustainability information that will follow through with the very large orders that the customers make.
And Monika?
Yeah, definitely for us, again, it's about being relevant. So for us, being able to do services that have a positive impact that enables our customers to be relevant, of course, enables us to do business. And for me, sustainable business is when you actually make money as well. So we can definitely see that having this kind of service helps us be a relevant player in the payments field.
Last word is yours, Frida.
Yeah, so the way we measure it is also in terms of volume. How many users or companies do we have in our platform? Because the easier it is for everyone to connect. And then also actually we started measuring impact in terms of money that our customers are pushing in the sustainable direction. So they're basically using our platform to analyze and push suppliers, portfolio companies, and other companies in a more sustainable direction. So we're measuring that as a big thing right now, which is almost like 20 billion euros soon, I think. So that is an exciting figures for us to see as a very small company still.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. And thank you to the Arctic15 team for putting it all together and letting us speak today. Hope you guys enjoyed the session. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.